Hello and welcome to the Irish Film London podcast. If you're a regular listener, it's lovely to have you back. And if you're a first timer, welcome. For those first timers, I'm Niamh and I'm joined here by the head of Irish Film London, Jerry. And we're going to do a quick recap of all things film and TV before handing you over to our interview today with writer, producer and director and good friend of IFL, Roisin Kearney. So, Jerry, how are you?
Not too bad. How's it going, Niamh?
Good, good. Has there been any cinema trips for you this week?
No, do you know, I was really good about going to the cinema like a fortnight ago, and I just haven't made it back since. Yeah, I've really wanted to go though. There's so much good stuff out. It's like this possibility of going back to the cinema is a real thing again now.
I know. It's such a treat because they only opened last week for us here in Dublin. So my first trip this week was to The Quiet Place Part 2, which was amazing. But I don't know whether it was because I just missed the cinema so much or that it was actually just a really good film, but I just left the cinema on such a high. Although I did make the rookie mistake of buying popcorn, which was a bad idea for a film where the main plot is that they have to stay silent to stay alive. So needless to say, the popcorn didn't get touched the whole film.
Is that one of those cinema experiences where you have like, you're chewing your popcorn at strategic moments?
Oh, yeah.
Like mouthfuls of popcorn that you just can't get rid of.
Absolutely. It's awful. And one person got nachos. Like, I thought I was bad with popcorn. Someone got no, it's such a waste of. I don't know why people get nachos anyway, but such a waste of money for that film. But I would highly recommend it. And one of our own, Cillian Murphy, is in it, who's incredible. I did like, if I ever did meet Cillian Murphy, I'd love to ask him, which would he prefer to live in, the kind of the Quiet Place world or 28 Days Later?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Two very different kind of places, but both extremely kind of traumatic.
Yeah.
But he was fantastic. His accent was flawless.
That's great. That's great. No, I didn't get to go to any cinema trips or do any cinema screenings this week. I did have a nice home viewing experience. I managed to get a copy of Songs for While I'm Away, the Phil Lynott biopic by Emer Kennedy. I've been dying to watch that property for a while, and I managed to sit down with it
amazing.
And have a go at it there during the week. I mean, it's been nominated for an IFTA this week, and we'll talk about the IFTAs in a minute. But I am 100% the target audience for this film. 100%. Like, grew up listening to Thin Lizzy. Been to, like, when I was 19 or 20 or something like that, we started going to Vicar Street and different venues in Dublin for there's this gig that used to happen every year in January called The Vibe for Philo, which is like a gig that some friends and family and stuff put on around his birthday. And I think the very last Vibe is coming up this January, if they can make it happen. And it's going to be like a kind of a big Thin Lizzy festival.
That sounds really special.
Yeah, me and my friend Dave, who became my brother-in-law, we used to go to them, and various people have went down with us over the years and stuff. But like, it's so nice to like relive the kind of the story of Thin Lizzy through this beautiful biopic. It's very tender and sort of paints a really nice picture of, a person who had a complicated life and who, it takes away the rock star stuff and reveals the person underneath it.
That's really nice as a fan, that you felt that that they did it justice and they did it right, and you left being quite satisfied. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you want to hear my touching Thin Lizzy story?
Absolutely.
Right. So Thin Lizzy have a ballad called Sarah, which is it's I didn't realize this until I watched the film. It's about Phil's daughter, Sarah. So we wrote it kind of for her. And so when me and my brother-in-law, before he was married to my sister, they were going out with each other, and I used to hang out at his house a lot. And it was over one Friday, and Sarah, my sister Sarah, had come up from Dublin from university for the weekend, and she brought the car up, and Dave, her husband, used to do this nice thing where she'd come in and, after her journey and stuff, and he'd get the car ready for the next trip, so that when someone has to go out for work in the morning, the car's turned around and everything's nice and everything. And during the evening, I realized, we're missing something. Maybe we needed beers for the evening or something. Oh, sure, I'll jump in the car. I'm on the insurance. I'll jump in the car and I'll go down to the shop and pick a few things up. Anybody want anything? And everyone's busy inside. Right? Okay, I'm away. I'll see you. So I jump in the car, turn this old Renault Clio on, and the tape deck starts playing straight away. Right? And there was always a Thin Lizzy tape or something like that in the tape deck, and it starts kicking in, and I know that Dave had queued up the tape right at the point where Sarah starts playing. Sarah Thin Lizzy starts playing it, because he wanted her to hear that first thing in the morning.
Oh, that's so lovely. Dave's setting the bar high. Wow.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, that is very sweet.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And also, actually, one of our other podcasts that we had with Alfonso Films, one of the producers in Alfonso Films, Joe Halpin, also worked on the Thin Lizzy documentary as well.
Brilliant.
But it is, so yes, as you said, it's nominated for an IFTA, which is amazing. And this year's nominations list is just off the charts.
Unbelievable list of films. I just can't get over the talent, the quality. There's just so much going on. And, we do what we do at Irish Film London, but there's so many films and individuals on that list that we've had on as guests or that we've talked to over the last couple of years. It's beautiful to see all that work being represented and being awarded, hopefully, and
absolutely. It's so rewarding to see it all being acknowledged, all that hard work.
Exactly.
And some of the nominees are some of our patrons, which is amazing. So we have Mo Dunford is on there for Knuckle Dust, Saoirse Ronan, Anamite, Lenny Abramson, and Fiona Shaw. And then there's just loads of other IFL friends on there, like Andrew Scott. And then there's I think there's 3 out of the 6 short films nominated that we've had on Irish from Home, which is fantastic. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I saw My Other Suit Is Human is on there. Kathleen was here last month. One of my favorite films that we had on Irish Film from Home was Flicker, and that's on there as well. But also Herself is on there. We had a podcast with Claire Dunn previously. The 8th is on there. I think that was our last podcast that we did, or maybe the one before that was with the filmmakers from the 8th. Wolfwalkers is obviously nominated. There was a podcast with that as well. Wildfire's on there, which we screened in our St. Bridget's Day selection earlier this year, and which has a release soon. There's just loads of stuff.
And also, it's also a reflection of Irish Film London being on it, if I do say so ourselves. We've been able to showcase so many amazing things. And as I was saying with Cillian Murphy having an amazing American accent in It's a Quiet Place, we also have nominated as Jessie Buckley for I'm Thinking About Ending Things. She's American in that. Niamh Algar in Raised by Wolves. Nicola Coughlan in Bridgerton. And I just think, I was saying to a friend of mine during the week, as Irish actors, and I'm going to include myself in that category, that we're quite lucky that we're quite versatile with our ability to do different accents and our look. We could be English or American or even Nordic when you think about Vikings and that kind of thing. So I think Irish talent is really kind of spreading and growing, which is amazing.
It's just a testament to the power of Irish film today, which is what we're all about at Irish Film London.
Exactly. So I think now that's a lovely note to hand us on over to the interview. So Jerry, you sat down with writer, producer and director Roisin Kearney this week.
I did, and we had a lovely chat, which started off being about her work, but became very wide-ranging, really, and became about things. So yeah, enjoy that, and we'll see you here again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Niamh. Roisin, you're somebody who we have a good relationship with at Irish Film London. I believe we would have featured your film The Family Way in 2019. Since I've been at IFL, we've had both The Ferry, which you were a producer on, and your short film Paddy, which was at our St. Patrick's Day Festival in 2021, which you were a director on. So it's really nice to be able to chat to you today. And yeah, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on.
Lovely to be here. Thank you very much for asking me.
So the first thing I want to ask you about is, on The Family Way, you were a writer. On The Ferry, you were a producer. And on Paddy, you were the director. That's 3 different roles for 3 different films. Do you see yourself as more of one thing than another, or like how do you describe yourself as a filmmaker?
Well, what I do most of the time and what I love doing is writing, and more recently directing. They're both things that I did previously when I was much younger, when I worked in theatre, and they would be my main focus. From a producing point of view, I produced The Family Way and wrote it for my sins. I didn't know I was going to be producing it when I was writing it. If I had, it would have been a very different script. But I ended up doing both. But it was, yeah, I love writing comedy. I love writing dark comedy. And that's where I started off with The Family Way. And I had previously produced 2 short films for Naomi Sheridan prior to that.
Okay.
And which kind of came out of nowhere. She was home for a year, and we just kind of sat down one day and said, let's make something. And she had 2 scripts. So off we went, and we went and made them, which gave me the confidence then to really go on. And when it came to The Family Way, to actually make it. And then Nuno Bernardo, who is the director of The Family Way, when he saw the script, he really liked what was going on, and then we worked together on it, and we developed it on a little bit more, and went and shot it in. It was madness shooting it. It's a pilot as well as a short film. So there's 2 cuts of it. There's one like 30-minute TV cut. There's one 18.5-minute short film cut, and it was 6 days on, I don't know, 9 or 10 locations with a cast hitting nearly 40.
Ooh.
So it was a big one to start off with.
Yeah.
Plunge yourself into, but it was great.
Is that one of your first projects then?
That was my first sort of writing and big producing wise, just because it was so big, because I was doing everything. I was doing locations, I was doing everything, we'd no budget, going out there and doing it. And I was really lucky because a lot of people that I knew from years prior to that I'd worked with came on board and played parts, and a lot of actors. There was like a lot of writer actors as well, which I kind of wanted to make a little grouping there, because it is comedy and it is funny. The film is about a mother and daughter who both think they might be pregnant at the same time and go chasing around the place to find a pregnancy test discreetly.
Right.
But of course, living in small town Ireland, that's never going to happen, because the chemist knows everything. So that's basically kind of the fundamentals behind it. But we had great fun, and the cast were brilliant, and just the whole thing worked out really well. I was very lucky. I was really lucky that a lot of people did me a lot of favors. So that's
good stuff. Good stuff. How do you deal with like putting different hats on in these different roles? Like, do you find yourself kind of moving from like a writer headspace to a director headspace and then back into producing again, or like is there I'd say I find the writing very, very different to everything else, because when I'm writing, I rely very heavily on just having that absolute silence and getting inside the heads of people and nearly letting them tell me what's going to happen or what's happening. It's all very well coming up. You have a concept, or you have an idea, or
a problem that someone is going to face, and then how you build that around. But I tend to write script and treatment at the same time, and go backwards and forwards, and because sometimes I need to get to know the characters while I'm writing them. And sometimes the only way I can do that is by listening to them, you know what I mean, and actually writing script or seeing their reactions, or, you know, feeling what they would be in a certain place. Then from a directing point of view, it's all about visualizing how each moment, each scene plays out. So for Paddy, I was directing someone else's script, and that was the first time I'd done that. I'd never directed someone else's script before, but I really enjoyed it because I felt I was coming at it really, really fresh, and I was just playing it over and over and over again, and how each moment right the way through was going to look. And then fantastic crew, like just amazing crew and actors, and everyone just worked so hard that I was delighted with the end result, you know. And yeah, I suppose coming from a theatre background as well, it's to me, everything is about the team.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make, you know, any individual can be fantastic, this, great, that, but it's how people work together, because it's a team sport. Making film is a team sport. That's, you know.
So true.
And you might have the coach or you might have the captain, but everyone has to work together. And when that works well, you can end up with a fantastic end result. You can score the goal, but different hats, different times. Then obviously with the Ferry I was producing as well, and that was Niall McKay and Marissa Arroy was producing with me. And I've known Niall for a good few years, and we'd always have stuff going backwards and forwards. And then he had the Ferry script, and I read it, and I loved it. And it's a darkness. There's a darkness, and the dark, you know, that's there, of the mother and baby homes and the personal tragedies that were happening in and around that. And but there's also a little thread of humor, you know. And I think that's how we deal with stuff, you know.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
So again, that would be something it's the way I like to approach story and people and individuals in those stories.
Yeah.
So it fitted very, very well, you know.
Yeah, because that's something I was going to talk to you about as well, is that, like, in all of your work that I've seen, and all of the stuff that we featured at Irish Film London, there is this theme of, like, in The Family Way, there's this kind of window into small town life in Ireland, and The Ferry is obviously about a tragedy that's dealt with by, I suppose, almost 3 different generations of women in different ways. And Paddy's more specifically about the Irish emigrant experience, in a sense. But there's always this sense of an Irish experience, like a uniquely Irish experience to all the work. And I suppose my question is, like, whether you think that that's a deliberate thing that you want to do in your storytelling, or whether you're attracted to stories which talk about Irishness or Irish experience, or whether that's just a part of being an Irish filmmaker.
I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, as someone who's Irish, we've all waved goodbye, we've all gone away, we've all heard the stories of, you know, and things are different now, and, you know, people can move around a lot better now, but there's a fundamental loss, I think, going back generations. You know, it goes back to famine times. It goes back to that of people having to leave or having to go. And then the reverse of that is, you know, there's an awful lot of people I know who, like, live in the States or live in the UK or France, Germany, wherever it is, or Australia and New Zealand, and they're living wonderful lives with lots of brilliant people around them who they enjoy immensely, but they still do long for a little bit of home. Like they still long for that spontaneous night, having a pint and someone breaks out a fiddle. Like, you know, they still, you know, it might never happen in the real world, but in their head, it's, you know, it's part of what's missing. It's kind of like the hug or whatever, you know. And I think that goes down generations as well. I think people, even if they're second or third generation, there's something there in the stories. But also there's a universal thing, like the family way as a mother and daughter. That's universal, you know, that relationship. And the three women who are three different generations who have all been affected by a loss of a child in some way, you know, a loss of a parent, a loss of a child, being involved as one of the characters is in that. That's identifiable throughout the world. Yeah. You know, it's the women's relationship and how they relate to each other and how they help each other through a very, very difficult time. And then with Paddy, it is the reverse, as in it's a very young man, but his mother's character is still in Ireland in her head. And she's rearing an Irish boy in her head, but she's not. Yeah. He's a young London boy. Yeah. So what she feels he is and what he is are two different things. So she wants to bring up an Irish boy in London, but she's not doing it. She's bringing up a London boy. Yes. In London. Okay. I see. So, and again, that's fairly universal. I think an awful lot of people can identify that from one space or the other. There's very few people now who are lucky enough that if they want, they're born and live and work and do whatever in the place they were born into, and historically have that. You know, it's not something that, you know, people move. And like sometimes I think in Ireland we're funny, like we have this thing of like wanting to be around in the same area, you know, your cousins are down the road and and that's not like, then you go to the States and people are like, oh well, I moved 6 hours away, and you're like, oh my, that's like the other side of the world. They can't figure that out. But maybe that's it. Maybe we're all just little home birds, and we all like to, you know, go back to thinking about being in our little bed in the top of the house, you know. But yeah, no, all three, they're all interrelation. They're all about interrelationships. And I think every story to a certain extent, yes, we have our protagonist who's going off to do whatever, and we have our antagonist who's going to get in their way, and that's fine. But what people identify with are relationships. Right. That's what I like to write about. That's what I like to see.
Is that structure of storytelling, like the protagonist and antagonist and like universal themes and so on, are those the tools that you're using that you feel are important for you to use to exploit, to create an original story?
I think like I love ensemble film. Right. I love ensemble theatre. You know, I think ultimately you have to have the person that people are going to identify with, the person whose story you're going to follow throughout. And that's a certain type of narrative that's going to be there, but it can be really, really subtle. You know, just because you have one that just skims above the water, I think you have to know as a writer. I think you have to know who your protagonist, who your individual is that you're following, and that can change sometimes, because sometimes you can be writing and then all of a sudden one of the other characters is just better fun to be around. You know, it shifts. But they're. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you have to have that identity. You know, you need to give your audience someone to root for. Yes. And so in that way, absolutely, yes, you do need your kind of protagonist. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you have to diminish the rest of the characters around that. You know, they can be every character that ever appears in any space on screen needs to be important. Yes. Because as soon as you move away from that, you lose it. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter if they've no lines, they still have a backstory. They still have, a story moving forward. And I think that's quite important to me, because even from an actor's point of view, I think they need that energy to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. Yes.
Yeah. So what's your background then, like from before these short films? Like, how did you get into film, or how did you become a filmmaker? What was your journey into this life?
Into this madness. I worked in theatre. So after college, I went and I was working City Arts Centre Theatre, and I was in there as the in-house technician. So I was lighting and sounding and working with different shows coming in and out all the time. So like every, week or two, you had a new group in, new show on. So I worked a lot of that. I've always worked an awful lot with kids. So I always kind of worked with kids in and around the Pier Street area and Markovich Flats as well at the same time. And we'd have music gigs and comedy gigs and all sorts of stuff. And then I did some acting in theatre. Actually, I quite like theatre. I always have. And I did a lot of ensemble theatre. So you were always creating narrative and creating scripts that way. Then I did a little bit of work writing actually for RTE for pilots, where I got to rewrite female characters in scripts, because they found that the female characters were a little bit one-dimensional in some of the stuff that they were doing. So I got a few scripts to go back through and write scenes for the women. Give the women a bit to do.
Yeah, okay.
So I did that.
That's a job that you can have in TV. I didn't realize.
Well, it was in the early 90s. I don't think it's a job you can have anymore, but it was certainly for the pilot stuff back. And it was actually a brilliant experience for me, because in the 90s that was a job.
Okay. So hopefully
we're a long way hopefully past.
Yes, hopefully we're a wee bit further on.
And then I went off and I was working in the Arc Children's Theatre. I worked with them for years, worked freelance, so I kind of toured an awful lot and went to lots of different theatres all around the place. Then there was a film called The Crooked Mile, which a friend of mine was making, which was a feature film shot in digital, the first digital feature.
One of the first ever digital features, yeah.
First ever digital feature. And I'd done I kind of acted a little bit on a few shorts and stuff for like Dunleary, and helped out in some of that stuff, because there's a few friends that were going through Dunleary. But that was all shot on film and on The Crooked Mile. And we went off to Jersey for 4.5 weeks and shot there, and then back to Dublin for a week. And that was a great experience. It was shoestring budget, shooting on digital. It was all, brilliant actors, great crew again. Stephen Kane was the writer. And it was a brilliant experience. Then I actually did a second film feature with Stephen after that again. And then just bits and pieces really for like helping out people, because people kind of went backwards and forwards, and filmmaking was so expensive.
Oh yeah.
That it really was very difficult to make anything, because you couldn't go out with your phone and make it was like the budget for a short would have been without paying anyone, at the very, very least, you were talking 7,000 to 10,000 at the time.
Yeah.
Which was the guts of a year's wages for a lot of people. It was huge money. And you'd beg, borrow and steal everything to try and make anything. So that it was very different circumstances. And then anyway, I worked away in theatre and film, going up backwards and forwards, doing a few bits and pieces. Whatever anyone needed me to do. I worked on Pavilion Lacking as well, which was great fun. That was shot over a huge amount of time with Winnie Mon, I loved being with them. I just really, really nice family and really good fun. And yeah, it was great. But I was pregnant at the time, and then I had a baby, number one. And then I found there wasn't as much work around very, very quickly after reproducing. So, so then I had 2 more, just like, if in for a penny, in for a pound. So I kind of, then I read scripts and I would do notes and do that sort of stuff for people. But I wasn't actively doing stuff for a good period of time, for a good few years, just because, one, the phone stopped ringing as much as it had previously, and 2, because it was just so impractical.
Yeah.
You know, because there were certainly no rules about how long you were shooting on a set at. Well, there probably were, but I had no idea what they were supposed to be, because you know, on the smaller stuff, because we, you know, and that's when, so big gap, 3 kids got bigger, and then Naomi was home for the year and she was like, I want to make something. And that's really what sprang me back into action in a lot of ways. I'd made a little tiny short before that myself with a friend, just for fun. And it was kind of, but it was much more theatre script wise, script wise. And then we did Prodigy and We Have Each Other, with the 2 shorts with Naomi, and that got me back going. That it kind of gave me back confidence. My confidence was kind of shattered at that point. So, and then have continued ever since. So, that's my journey.
Well, listeners, I hope you're enjoying the interview so far. Just a quick reminder that the IFL podcast is completely independent. So I would ask that if you enjoy yourself, or you love popping onto our website to check out the films we put up for you guys, to consider making a donation or becoming a champion. If money is tight at the moment, even just spreading the word about us would be really wonderful. Just before I hand you back over, we'd like to thank Culture Ireland and the Irish Emigrant Support Programme for their ongoing support of our work, including this podcast series.
That journey of like leaving the industry for a while and coming back in, that's something that we've talked about a lot this year at Irish Film London, and a lot of our interviews and our industry focus sessions is like, well, support for parents and carers in the first instance. Like, there's obviously a lot of different focus on that now, and amazing organizations out there like Roisin Films, who we've spoke to for some of our mental health focus sessions and support focus sessions, and the research that they're doing and the industry insights that they're gathering is really super important. But to a lesser extent than what you're describing, I've definitely felt that pressure as a father with young kids in the industry, and I think, like, I don't know, I mean, like, I suppose people feel it at every level, but like, if you're working in a creative role where there's less of, I don't know, like, in some ways there's less structure. Well, there is, there's definitely, there's loads less structure to your day, to your week. Like, you can't really turn around to your partner, if you're lucky to have one, or whoever's picking up the slack of caring for you, and say, all right, yeah, so we're going to have a 9 to 5 day, and I'll see you at 5:45 for dinner and everything. No, you can't even tell someone most days where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing that morning. It's just it's so tough. Like,
yeah, no, it's a huge issue, but it's something that has to be addressed. I mean, talent is getting lost, and either in London or in Ireland, we can't afford to lose that talent.
That's it.
We can't afford to lose those people. And yes, I'm in a very lucky position now. My kids are big enough, they can do their own stuff, and but I see it all the time, and like, in some ways I can't believe that 17, like my eldest is 17 years later, we're still here. We're still having this discussion, because ultimately it has to come from the top down, and people have to look at their budgets and say, instead of saying, oh, we can shoot this in 18 days, that's great, say, actually, no, we can give people proper days, make sure that, there's stuff around on set, because once you know what's happening, you can adjust around it. So if I'm going to have a night shoot on Wednesday, you can make your plans, you can do what you're going to do. And we all know stuff runs over, and that's fine. We can adjust a little bit, but you know, you can't make it just an industry for people who don't have to care for someone else. And that's like, whether it be it children, be it siblings, be it parents, be it, you know, anyone around them, you know?
Yeah.
Because by losing those people, you're losing story, and you're losing knowledge, and you're losing experience.
Experience, exactly what I was going to say, yeah.
And if we're making things that are representative of society, then we have to represent society.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I was going to chime in with as well, is that if you don't have a facility in place to allow for people who have care and responsibilities of any kind to maintain a career, then the only people who are left in the industry are those who are settled and secure and comfortable enough economically and everything else, so that all the jobs go to them. So that's people that who you know, a huge percentage of people on the bottom of that scale are hard done by, just because there's no babysitting provision, or, you know, there's no thought towards it.
Completely. And even like from a cost perspective, like that's one of the reasons that even when there was bits and pieces that came in, like it had to pay enough for me to pay someone else to mind the kids. You know, and so if something's going to be 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is, then you have to factor in the fact that, well, it's going to be like say it's a tenner an hour for the kids to be minded.
Yeah.
It has to be worth that much more to you. And even if it's a break-even situation, which we've all been at, we've all been in those break-even situations, it's, yeah, you need that. And like when I was lucky, I had saved over years, because I knew if I was going to get back, I was going to need, you know, a few, like 3 or 4 grand to be able to go in and say, right, I'm going to make something. Okay. So I literally put it away over years. And when I made the family way, thankfully, so many people, like, I mean, Ciara and Clara, who played the leading roles in that, were fantastic, talented actresses, and would always, you know, have stuff on and all the rest. And I didn't know prior to it. When I sent them the script, they were like, I want to do this. I want to do it. And then everyone else who came on board put their trust in me to say, you know, so basically everyone else paid for that film, and then I paid for the food, because giving me their time is paying for the film, you know. And then I do it back, like I'll do whatever, you know, everyone I'll always try, and that's the way we work. I mean, we all do a little bit of that, but I was very lucky to be able to do that. I was very lucky to be able to save up the few quid and do whatever, you know. More needs to be done. We need to. I was on did a shoot with, actually it was a kids TV show called Game Remote, and we ran a family friendly set, and all our days started about 10 and we all finished before 6 every single day, and that was the way it was done. It was, when we went into it, Triona, who was the producer, and I was associate producer on it, that was a really important part to us. We were running a family friendly set, and there were 3 people on set who had young children, and they knew I'll be able to drop them to creche and I'll be able to pick them up. And that was really important for us, because we were both mothers, and we both could see, we'd both been through the situation where that's not easy.
And was that possible on that production because it was kids TV and you were working with young performers as well, or because their hours would have been like young performers aren't allowed to work legally for like as long as adults, I suppose.
A little bit, but not really, because we'd 6 of them and they weren't on set at the same time.
Right.
So by rights, we could have worked one after the other, you know, but we chose not to. You know, we chose to do it in a way that, and it wasn't like, it really wasn't that much more expensive. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't that difficult.
Yeah.
You know,
so it's done. It is possible, like, and it has.
Oh, it took planning, like, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It took planning. It took the extra effort, but it can be done. And like, if you're making kids TV, it should, you know, you should be able to have it accessible for crew and for everyone else involved. And like, I'm not saying I didn't like send emails at like 10 o'clock at night. That's fine because I was at home, you know.
Yeah.
But and that was me, and I was associate producer, you know, that's fine. But even weekends, you know, we didn't do weekends, which was fantastic. Some people could actually have weekends. And yes, it's TV, it's not film. I know that. Yes, it's you know, and all those things. But really, films used to be made over a much longer period of time. They've gotten shorter. The way, you know, and obviously it's like, oh, budget. But, and I get that, I produce, I know exactly what it feels like when you're trying to like squeeze the last bit out of your budget to make sure something happens in a certain way. But it is a matter of, we have to look at budgets because people can't, you know, you can't, you know, you don't go to the shoe cobbler and say, oh, well, you know, I know it's going to be 10 euros, but I'm only going to give you €6 to fix it. And then they, you know, put in 2 nails and the heel falls off 2 days later. You know, it's like, you do have to think about things in a bigger way sometimes.
Yeah. Thinking about the bigger picture then, I want to go back to talking about your work, because you're still creating work and there's new work that you're making as well. What are you working on now these days?
Well, at the moment, I actually was just I was directing the Irish leg of a feature documentary. So yesterday for Bloomsday, just a little one day thing, but it's a documentary on Joyce's women, actually, his feminist women, which is right up my street.
Okay.
And so it's for Left Bank. It's Left Bank Films, and it's a French director is the director of the whole lot. But so I was running around town yesterday with a crew, catching people off guard as they celebrated Bloomsday with port and whiskey and oysters and all those wonderful things, and getting readings. That was great. No, that was really good. And I think they're back again in October. So there's, you know, it's been shot over a period of time. So we'll be back running around again, no doubt. And then I'm also working on it's young people's TV show called Keep It Up, and it's with 13-year-old girls, and it's asking the question of why are so many dropping out of sport, because there's a huge drop off in that age group of young girls. So I'm going to sports camp for 2 weeks with a load of 13-year-old girls, and we're going to go and do loads of stuff and play and have a good time, and
Brilliant.
You know, jump around the place and jump off piers and climb up walls and meet some sporting superstars to encourage us all to keep active at some level, hopefully.
That sounds just like loads of fun, actually.
Yeah, I keep looking at everything. We're going around checking out locations, and I'm like, I'll be able to do the zip line. I totally want to do that. And then putting in sports, like, what sports are we going to do? It's like, yeah, can we go see horses? I want to see horses. So yeah, we're all getting a little bit excited about the idea of just going and being in sports camp for a couple of weeks. That should be a lot of fun.
Class. Brilliant. And look, I know you're not allowed to tell me about everything that you're working on, but you did tell me that you were developing some TV stuff.
I am. I'm working away on a few bits, actually. I've one script that I'm really excited about called RIP, which I'm pegging away on, and it's a 6-part series, and it's all women, loads of very funny women, who are, it's another small town, actually. Small town in Ireland.
I knew that this was the theme.
And But yeah, no, I love complex women, and I love women's relationships, and be they mother, daughter, whatever, that's the family way, and right the way through. And so yeah, this is three sisters, so it's three grown sisters, three women who are like in their 30s, 40s, and just that interrelationship. I think family relationships are hilarious anyway at the best of times, because you stay being the person you are. Like, I'm the youngest in my house, and I still very much get treated like the little ticko, you know what I mean? Like, oh, there she goes again, And my two older sisters, look at me as if they're like, oh, just stop, You get treated like the kid. I'll always be the kid. It doesn't matter what age I get to. And I see it with my mum even, and her older sister. And like, her older sister's in her 80s, but mom was still the little sister in that relationship, and very much so. And you can see, and I love that. I love that idea of you can't grow out of your place inside a family, if to a certain extent. There's a couple of another feature script that I'm working on as well, which is young people's as well, which is lots of fun. It's
good.
In very early development as well. And then I have another one. Actually, I have another one. I just remember. I have another one, which is about older people, but it's music based.
Right.
One, but it's all the main characters will be in their late 60s, early 70s. So
yeah, that's you're not short of a project or two.
Well, you have to have a few in the drawer, You
do. You have to have a few plates spinning, as we say.
And if you get bored of one, you can go talk to one of the others. It's grand.
Right. Thank you so much for chatting to us today.
I
suppose you won't have been across in London for like a year or more.
Yeah. No, the last time I was over in London. Actually, it was for I got there's a project I'm helping out on, but I got nominated for the new Voice Award for the Ed Fest, and it was over in London a couple of years ago, and I was over for that. And one of the writer-directors that I met over there, Alex, has a fantastic project that he's shooting in London that I'm helping out on, but it's about Olive Morris, who's just, my mind was blown when I read about her.
Yeah.
And
I know this project. Yeah. And I know Alex.
He's fantastic. And so I've been working away with Alex a little bit. We actually we were thinking about trying to shoot it here over in Ireland, and we had a little look at that as an idea. But yeah, it's a story that needs to be told so badly. She was arrested defending a black man from police brutality.
Olive's a young woman of color as well, right?
Yes. So she was a young black woman. She was 17 at the time. She was like, she was a child. And she was arrested at the time and brought to the station. She was threatened with rape. She was threatened. Like, I find it really hard to get my head around how, strong a woman she was. But she was also part of the squatters' rights and finding homes and like equality within that area of London through the 70s. Then she traveled the world. She traveled, and she was one of the original female Black Panthers in London, but she went over to New York. She met the Black Panthers there. She was in Belfast, and she met people there, and she died incredibly young. And I think, which makes it, I think that's nearly part of it, because she devoted the little life she had to making things better for so many, and an unbelievable force of nature that I really think it's so important, and so important for women to see, so important for young Black women to see, and her to be celebrated, like, because the fact that I mean, even though I'm in Ireland, I'm horrified that I don't know about her. I'm horrified I didn't know about her before. And it blows my mind that you could be in the UK, like where she was brought up, where all of this stuff happened, and her not to be in every textbook that a kid is reading in class.
That's exactly how I felt about it. So I met Alex the writer of this project about a year ago, and he told me about this script, The Ballad of Olive Morris, and I straight away said that to him. I said, I can't believe I've never heard of this person, because I hadn't. And this all happened in Brixton, which is a stone's throw from where I am, and I had no history of it. I had no knowledge of Olive as an activist. I had no knowledge of the impact that she had, and that's just exactly the reason why a film like that needs to get made, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, we can talk all we want about equality, about representation, about this. These people are there. They're in our history. They just haven't been celebrated yet.
Roisin, thank you so much for chatting to us today. And
Not at all.
We look forward to seeing some of your many projects.
I'm getting old. I'm in a hurry. I have to just make loads of stuff now.
Good. Well, look at as you know, we'll be staying in touch with you. But yeah, please stay in touch with us, and we'll see you in London sometime soon.
Hopefully, very soon.
Deadly. Right.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Well, that's it from us here today, folks. Thank you so much for listening. We wish Roisin the best in all of her upcoming projects. We're so excited here at IFL to see what's next. Don't forget to follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and also check out our current film programme that we have in store for you on our website in the Irish Film From Home section, where you can watch some amazing shorts and documentaries from the comfort of your own home. If you enjoyed today, make sure to check out some of our other podcasts where we chat to many different IFTA nominees. A final thank you to the Irish Emigrant Support Programme and Culture Ireland, who've been brilliant supporters of ours for years. Garmila Mahagut. The Irish Film London podcast is produced by me, Niamh Brannigan. Our interviewer today was the head of Irish Film London, Jerry Maguire, and our theme music is by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again soon.